Nowadays, pre-registrations are people are avoiding because of this. I think because it's easy to see those online in which case. So.
All right, cool. I think we are streaming live. Yeah, we are streaming live. We are good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next edition of Design Confluence, where we have an excellent panel of architects with us, led by our very own architect Nilesh Gandhi. I will not take much of your time since we started a little late, so I will move on straight away. I would request our chairperson, Architect Leena Nimbalkar, to please welcome you all. Madam Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you, Mehul. Dear IID family, good evening. Greetings from Mumbai chapter. Welcome to our series Design Confluence episode 4. Sorry, I have injured my eyes. Hence, sorry that I will keep my video off. Yeah, I will start now. I believe that as a leader, my true strength lies in continuous research-oriented attitude, setting new innovative goals, and accomplishing it with passion and dedication. Also, to be the driving force, motivate and inspire the team to work towards our mission. I am happy and proud that my team is now fully geared up to carry out our educational and informative series in dedicated way. IID MRC have completed 3 webinar projects under this third series, Design Confluence, catering to relevant topics of concern, giving lead to managing committee members. This is a learning series that focuses on the multidisciplinary nature of interior design. First webinar of series was on World Interior Day to promote our trade members. Design Inner Consciousness was held up to celebrate International Yoga Day. The theme Ecocentric Designs was curated for our third webinar. It is today's need to save Mother Earth by reducing carbon footprint. Hence, reduce, reuse and recycle is our buzzword for IID MRC Vision 2019-21. We all took an oath to produce environmentally and ecologically responsible designs. As it is, contextual and vernacular designs have always been on top of the cards. This is the story behind eco-sensitive designs. Here we learned about practice and pedagogy in environmental architecture, which is sensitive to nature and culture of the people. We also understood various facts to create a world that is beautiful, meaningful, soulful, and in holistic spiritual harmony with the natural environment. Today, we are going to enjoy the journey with our 2 experts, Roshni and Autif, and will acquire the knowledge about green buildings and interiors, energy efficiency, and green rating, etc. Hence the appropriate name, Commitment Towards Green Spaces. Are we ready? Now, let me introduce you all to our institute, IID. Institute of Indian Interior Designers, commonly known as IIID, is founded in 1972. We have 33 chapters and centers all over India and internationally. Mission and objectives of IID are to consolidate and expand contribution of interior design profession in contemporary and future societies, to improve the quality of life by sharing of knowledge, experience, and responsibilities. We are the only apex body of the fraternity. We take pride to be affiliated to Asia Pacific Space Designers Association and member of International Federation of Interior Designers. Design Excellence Awards, National Conference, and Showcase are our flagship events. With dynamic leadership at NEC and also at chapter levels, we are blooming into manifold activities. Design Culture Collaborative, Art in Interiors, and Go Quizzical are new project launch for our members. Mumbai Regional Chapter is one of the largest chapter of IID. We have strong heritage and legacy. This glorious past also comes with a lot of responsibilities. We owe to our chapter and members to deliver the best. Motivated by all these factors, we have viewed our events around multiple verticals for this tenure, catering to various components related to interiors and other allied branches. We have successfully completed 9 actual activities in first 7 months. Many masters and experts from the industry have been our guest speakers. Our event were on innovative, informative topics and unique, hence received a huge response. In February, we received a gold medal from the IID President and NEC for successful compliance of all the necessary formalities. March arrived with negative surprise of COVID-19 situation, but even pandemic couldn't dampen our spirit. We are happy to announce that this year, the Design Excellence Award from Mumbai entries were 170. That was the highest numbers in the country. Due to the pandemic, all the scheduled events for in entire tenure of 2019 and 20 became standstill since March. In April 2020, we shifted our focus to webinar bandwagon. In past 5 months, we have completed 39 successful webinars individually and on collaborative platforms of IID. IID is recently started with online continuous education program, CEP, for professionals and students with the unique system of adding credit points. Master Stroke for Students is another series by IID MRC. As the first lady chairperson of Mumbai, with focused dynamic leadership, along with my team, our vision is to make brand IID happen, keeping legacy and tradition alive, in tune with our mission and objectives. We started our tenure in August 2019 and going in roaring way. I request you all to visit our website www.iid.in. I repeat, www.iid.in and become part of our family. Right from architectural and interior students, young designers, professionals, manufacturers, traders, or corporates and institutes, we embrace all the faculties of industries and include them as our members under various categories. Moderating our session today, we will be our own IID Managing Committee member, architect Nilesh Gandhi, founding director at Meta Design India Private Limited, which specializes in landscape and green building certifications. An entrepreneur and teacher, a green crusader, I must say. I invite Nilesh to take over. Thanks.
Thank you, Leena. So, when we all started, welcome each one on the platform today. And when we started a couple of weeks back to kind of curate this kind of session, there were a lot of thoughts. One more webinar, not again types. So everyone was saying, oh, do we really need it? But then thoughts came up and then it so happened. So one good thing which has happened in this pandemic is about the way we all have collaborated and the wealth of knowledge that has been shared across platforms. And already the small world that we used to call has become smaller and smaller, and we all have been connected diversely and so aggressively, made us enthusiastic enough to come up with this session on green spaces, which has been the need of the hour for the past many decades, which is a parody in itself. We call it the need of the hour, but it has been the need of the hour for the past 20 years now. So, rightly said by our chairperson, IIID is by far one of the unique organizations which also has trade, which has a support system of the industry part of it. So the objective of today's webinar, friends, here is to come to the nuances of green spaces, creating green spaces. And I think we would have achieved our objective of this particular discussion with our distinguished panel of experts if we go home at the, of course, sorry, not go home, we already are home, but yeah, if we go back, if we go back and be in a better position than what we started with. So that is the overall objective of the webinar, and I'm sure we will be able to do justice to what to our discussion today. Introducing our first panelist for the day, Roshni. It's an honor to introduce you. Roshni Udyavar, Yehuda has been a practicing architect. She has been an academician at core. Her competency lies in energy and efficiency and environmental design of buildings. She has a doctorate in resource management and is a qualified master trainer, and also empaneled ECBC, BEE, you name it. Dr. Yehuda is president of Institute of Environmental Architecture and Research. She is a director of Roshni Udyavar and Associates in Mumbai and advisor to Environment and Sustainability Science and Technology Park in Pune as well. She is currently principal investigator for the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India's research project on energy efficiency. She was also head of Roshni for good 20 years, where she initiated several environmental programs in addition to the postgraduate program specifically on environmental architecture. Welcome, Roshni. Welcome to this panel. It is a real honor to have your expertise and experience shared for our members. Our second distinguished panel member is architect Autif Mohammad Saeed, who is also passed out of SPA Delhi by training, and who now focuses on mainstream energy efficiency and green buildings through technical expertise, policy matters, investment support. He is the project head for International Finance Corporation, a member of the World Bank Group, and he is not only heading India but also managing Mongolia. He has previously supported development of green buildings codes in Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and also he has facilitated investments of upwards of $500 million into the green investments into green bonds and other revenues. So also more than 1 million square meters of green spaces is what Autif has facilitated certification across the Edge platform with IFC support. So welcome, Autif. You have made the panel very heavy with your presence and with the wealth of exposure and experience that you bring to the table. Starting with you, Roshni. So you have been an academician at core, and you have a good amount of your time has been into. So this is a question which I generally ask the last, but you being on the panel, it brings the question to the first. Like, how is the divide between academics and industry? Are they spreading far? Are they coming near? How would you address to that concern of the times?
First of all, thank you, Mehul, Leena, Nilesh, for inviting me on this panel. And I should congratulate IIID for selecting this topic. Coming to the specific question that you have asked me, Nilesh, I think, in my view, there is still a huge difference between industry and academics. It's not bridged at all. I don't know about other fields, but in this area, which is design, architects, interior designers, we are all in the design field somehow. That connection with industry, which should actually be more stronger, is not happening. And I'm always thinking about a larger situation of whole of India, which we have to reach out to, whether it is sustainability or even just basic design aspects of things. We still forget that a huge number of designs are happening in the villages, in the small towns, in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, where probably we have still not reached, and the sustainability aspect remains to reach there. And and even in places like our own cities, like mega cities like Mumbai or Chennai or some places like that, still there is a gap. We used to do this exercise in the MARCH program as to how many students of ours are actually practicing sustainability after they finish. And it was as a disappointment, I would say not more than 25%, because okay, some people are self-employed, some people, take that thing to find a job which is really, in sustainability. But still a large number of them go back into the mainstream, and that's really a sad thing for me. I wish that everybody would have got a job in the sustainability field, and that's because the industry has to mature and bring, those kind of jobs. We need a number.
Just to interrupt you, Roshni, there. So the mainstream is not sustainability, right? How? So that is the key problem. That what I read from your answer is that. So why is mainstream? Why is sustainability not the mainstream?
Yeah, I think that has to happen with, and slowly in many of the universities, the curriculum is changing to bring in sustainability right from the first year. This wasn't there at our times, we never had sustainability except maybe climatology as a subject or something. So I think it has to do with the education right from the beginning, that awareness and sensitivity towards environment and sustainability has to be there. And this will probably take a few years, if not a decade or so. But if there is a change, and we have enough number of trained resource people to teach the students, then it can happen faster.
And what role do you think IEAR can play into this? The reason why I think it has been conceptualized. So, what is your contribution by way of IEAR?
IER, Institute of Environmental Architecture and Research, is actually a group of people who have been working in this field for a very long time, or all on environment. And we actually started the course on environmental architecture. So I wouldn't say one area, but our key areas are three. But if you ask me one area to specify, then I would say to develop models of sustainability, whether it is in ecological, whether it is in zero buildings, whether it is in sustainable cities. Our focus is to show models that are actually practicing in reality. So this is our focus. And to this, the other two areas which are important is research and training. All three of these are important for us, and we are focusing on all three of them. Just to give you an example, in 2015, we took an entire batch of to do a program on tourism in Sindhudurg district and government of Maharashtra. So 21 villages where we planned a planning process where the students worked and created a master plan for sustainable village tourism, considering that in the future, these people are more relying on not on agriculture, but on a kind of activity or an alternative for them. Many such examples are there. Probably I can explain if there is time.
Sure.
But yeah, that's
sure.
In IER is to actually role models, actually develop in the world.
Coming to you, Autif, if you can, I think you're on mute. Yeah. So, Autif, after passing out, if you can just very quickly, briefly tell us, after passing out of architecture, when did this sustainability thing come on to you, specifically you, and how can it come to others for those whom it is a bit far?
Thank you, Nilesh, and thanks for inviting me here. Well, I got introduced to sustainability not by looking at the future or the present, but rather by looking at the past. So I was fortunate that when I was in college, one of my professors was doing a research in sustainability, or rather in traditional architecture in Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. And I got a chance to actually be part of that study and see how efficiently people were building at the time, despite all the constraints that they had for cost and technology availability at the time. And those buildings are still very efficient, still very comfortable. And then similarly, when I went for my postgraduate program in the US, I got a chance to go with one of my professors to visit traditional Native Indian, Native American homes, Red Indian homes in some of the places in Arizona and New Mexico. And again, I saw the same thing. Vernacular architecture that had been built up over time, they had kind of found the right recipes, and they had kind of started to use that on a regular basis. So there were no green buildings as such, but every building was green in a way. So learning from the past and then adopting that to the present, I think that's what we are all trying to do with the green building. We're not trying to go back into the past, but just taking the lessons from the past, seeing what really makes sense, and then adopting our buildings to that. So that kind of transcendence over time is what really interests me and what brought me here.
So in your, say 20 years of practice that you have seen, 20 plus years of practice, you have seen India transform and make its own contribution towards this sustainability and the green bin. On a percentage basis, if you have to rate that how much effort from a percentage basis we have done, what would that figure be?
It's very hard to put a percentage on it, but I would say we have taken some big steps. So if you look back, let's say 30 years ago, actually we were doing not too bad. The buildings being built at the time were fairly efficient, and we were hardly using air conditioning at the time. It's that period from the 80s till now, I guess, which is when the real transformation has happened, and to some extent the real damage has also happened. India has become one of the fastest growing energy consumers in the world. Our groundwater is depleting. Our air in the cities is becoming worse, and it's all because we've not really planned our growth very well. And we've done it, and the blame lies equally on the government and the private sector, on us as professionals, and a little bit probably the least on the buyers, because the buyers are just buying what they find in the market. So there is transformation happen. There are rays of hope. There is a lot of optimism in the market as well, because there are some great examples. And as Roshni was saying, it's those models, those examples that really can create change. If we can see what others are doing in the same situation, that's what really inspires most of us to act and follow that path.
So let me try my luck with Roshni. If you could give me a figure on a percentage basis as to how do you think Atif has I have no success with Atif. So let me see if I can.
Yeah, I think
if you were to put a percentage figure, as to how much have we done against in the past 2 decades of extensive green building movement in India. So what would be your take?
I think if you're asking for past 2 decades, then I would say maybe 5%.
Oh, that is very, very, very interesting. That's the reason. So we could have done so much more, is what you're trying to say?
Yes. And again, I look at the larger picture always, that India is not just in the big cities here in Mumbai and other places. There's a big picture beyond that, which we are not looking. And unfortunately, what Autif just mentioned, that is our inspiration, is these vernacular buildings. Like last year, I was in Belgaum doing a workshop on Small is Beautiful. And I found that this place had like 100-year-old houses, mud houses, 400-year-old houses. But all of them, one by one, were getting demolished and new buildings were coming up. These buildings, they never required the energy that we consume in our modern buildings. And yet we are breaking them and we are building these new buildings which are highly energy inefficient. So where we are not succeeding is in going into these small places and saying that this is where we should not be doing these mistakes,
So Roshni, trade members are a very important part of our IIID also, and also part of the overall industry. The real estate industry cannot exist without material manufacturers, traders, suppliers. So what role do you see them to play into this entire sustainability gambit?
I think they are a very important part of the, practical solutions, because there are so many rules and regulations. Like there is energy conservation building code. There are different standards and voluntary rating systems. But I would say the actually practice is not happening. Is one of the big reasons is non-availability of things in the market. So if you don't have materials which are which have a U value of 0.4 or something like that, then what do? You don't have materials in the market. So I think the material manufacturers, the products people have a big role to play, and also in terms of awareness, because earlier people, if they had a recycled product, they would probably hide it. Say, let me not tell the consumer. But now they proudly say so much is recycled, and that's become a sort of awareness thing, that people choose materials which are now recycled. So that's a big change. So they have that change among the consumers and also the designers.
So this is more of a strategic question, Autif, rather than a technical one. Is it that the one who pays, is he the most important stakeholder?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't hear the whole question.
Yeah. Is the one who pays, is the one who's making the payment, is he the most important stakeholder, is what my question is.
So are you talking about the payment to build the building or payment to operate the building?
I think to build, because I know the one who, so that is also, that was part of my follow-up question to you.
So actually both are
tricked me there.
Yeah. So actually it is a vicious cycle. So what really happens in the market is the builder says, oh, why should I build in an efficient building? if there is no demand in the market, if the people who are going to buy my house or rent my building, if they're not demanding it, why should I build? And then the buyer passes on the blame back to the developer, saying, I don't have enough choices to buy, so I have to buy, and it's not there, so I have to buy an inefficient one. So it is kind of a vicious cycle that has to be broken. It is actually a market. I would say once the market really demands it, the builders will meet the demand, and we've seen that across other sectors as well. If let's say if car efficiency, now people understand efficiency of cars, kilometers per liter. That's one of the first questions you ask when you go and buy a car. We don't ask that question when we buy a house or when we rent an apartment or an office building. So once that
famous reminds me of that Maruti ad, kitna deti hai types.
Exactly. So if you start asking that for buildings,
building kitna consume karta hai.
Exactly.
Yeah, kitna aapka flat kitna consume karta hai. So that question should be it should become that kind of word of mouth kind of a language in which a consumer should ask the developer कि आपका flat में बिजली का consumption कितना square units per square feet है, rather than rate per square feet.
Correct.
Very well put. Very well put. This can we have audience? This is I hope you are getting into the groove of things. I think it is time for us to have a poll question to you. If we can have that up. So we are just trying to understand how aware we are, and in your area of expertise, have you ever opted for any environment-friendly solution? I can't. Achha, we can't vote. Okay. I thought I would also try myself to vote. Okay. So, do we have the statistics? We give a couple of seconds, and if we can have that. Can we have the results now, Mehul bhai? Or
I'm just waiting. People are still voting. Another 10 seconds and we'll close it.
Sure. So, friends, this is just to gauge, because many a times you come across and there are small. So, just while these 10 seconds pass, the one single when someone asked me over a coffee or something that for you what is sustainability, and I happen to have a handkerchief in my pocket, and then I just pulled it out and said, this is sustainability for me. Yes. Oh, great. So we have a very knowledgeable and we have a very concerned audience, which is nice to know, with almost 55% of us claiming that they always will opt for an environmental solution. Great. So just to finish that story, so that handkerchief was just a way of sustainability, rather than plucking two paper napkins, which we so innocently and in we do. So coming back to the discussion, Roshni, what is your take on rating systems? How good they are?
Well,
or are they?
Well, rating systems are definitely have played a role in creating awareness. I remember that we started our our PG program in environmental architecture in 2002, and we used to get like 7 students, 6 students. But the moment there was this green building movement started, you know, it speeded up. People all wanted to do this thing, and today every out says I want to be an IGBC AP or a LEED AP. So definitely in terms of awareness, they have played a role. Apart from that, I think that they serve as very good design guidelines, checklist, and a third-party validation of any green building. Otherwise, you know, anybody can frame a green building. So they have played their role. I think certainly they are important.
Autif, for you, how has your experience been with particular? What is your take on the several rating systems which are available and practicing in the market today?
Yeah, I agree with Roshni on that. I think they have played an important role. And if we go back to our example of the car, it's again the same thing. These green building rating systems are providing that label that you affix on a car, a new car, which tells you the performance or the expected performance of that car. So the green buildings labels are the same thing. They're just telling you what you should expect out of that building. And the good thing is we've got competition in India. We've got several different systems, which in a way has kind of pushed all of them to excel, to be on their best and try to exceed the expectations. The big risk that we have is to uh, avoid greenwashing, because this is a case in many countries, in many green building rating systems. I'm not pointing to a specific one here, but there have been instances where building has not really been built to that standard, but they got a certification maybe in the early design stage that they're still using, and they're claiming to be green. They're attracting clients
What
based
that
on that.
was it this gap which necessitated World Bank and IFC to enter into the market apparently late? So was it this gap or something else?
This is one of the reasons. I think the bigger reason was that we felt that green building rating system was such a good thing that it needed to be available for the entire market, not just the cream of the market, because that's what the common practice is. You would see the MNCs or the big corporates go for, or the luxury apartments or luxury malls, or etc., go for green building certification. Why can't we make it affordable enough and simple enough for even the low income housing, the EWS housing, or a 3-star hotel, or a small office building in a small city to go as well and reap the benefits? It's not just for display. The policies are being put in place to get benefit out of green building certification. So why should they be left out? So that was the intent for us, to have as many green buildings being built as possible. Well, the ultimate goal is that the green building rating system becomes redundant. Nobody would need it because every building would be built green. But we are very far away from that. So this is where we think we would fit in here, to try
So for
to
the benefit of
democratize.
for the benefit of audience, would you like to share the edge rating system as it's called, and what USPs and there's a very important and very unique software that it provides. So can you share that with
Sure.
us?
So I'll share my screen.
Yes, please.
So as Nilesh was suggesting, this is a rating system that we have developed for emerging markets, for developing countries. And we've been working on this for about 6 years now. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. Why is it there, and what does it do, and how is it different from other systems? So firstly, who we are. So I work for International Finance Corporation, which is part of the World Bank Group. So our goal is not really profit making in this. Our goal is primarily to work on reducing risks to susceptible to the population around the world, especially in developing countries who may be affected by climate change and other such big risks that may be there. So to fight climate change, one of the key tools that we found, the key sectors, was buildings, because they have one of the biggest impact on greenhouse gases, but also offer one of the most cost-effective ways of reducing greenhouse gases. So we came up with this program where we work on the policy side with the green building codes wherever possible, with incentives, and then we also work on the investments, direct investments. So we IFC invest in green buildings, larger projects typically, directly or through local banks. And then we have an education program also that we've really recently started. So we train thousands of people around the world, and including students now in several universities. And to tie it all up together, we came up with this EDGE certification, which was needed because we felt there was a need for a simpler standard that could apply globally. And I'll explain how we've formulated that. Maybe I'll skip this part and go, because I think we all understand India. So the challenge that you've asked this as well. How do developers figure out what to build? What is really green? What would give us the most impact? Sometimes that's not very clear. We often look at magazines or websites and look at examples from, let's say, US or UK or some Japan, and we think, oh, that's a nice building. And we try to adapt some of that here. But it may not work here because the climate is very different, the context is very different, the material availability is very different, the way we use buildings may be very different as well. So what is the most appropriate solution for my environment, for my city, for my locality, for my building? That needs to be figured out. Now, people with training get that, but we know a lot of people around the world who are building buildings, designing buildings, have not really had that kind of training. So we needed something simpler to help them do that rather than have all of them go through a postgraduate college, which is just not practical. So we came up with, firstly, a simpler definition of green. What really is green? So firstly, we said green is something that's 20% better than your peers, than what others are doing in your market. So for example, if we are evaluating a 3-star hotel being built in Navi Mumbai, we will be comparing other 3-star hotels in that region, in Navi Mumbai or Mumbai region, and see how those buildings are performing, and that becomes a benchmark. And if you are 20% better than that, that's the quantifiable definition of green. The second part of this definition of green is it should be validated. You cannot just claim to be green and without any check. So that there has to be an independent third party validation system in place to make sure that the market can trust. And thirdly, there should be some reporting, impact reporting. Once the building is built, is it really performing to that standard? And that's becoming even more important now with the governments, including Government of India, having committed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as part of the global agreements. So there is a set target for us to report to the global community that this is how much we are reducing. So buildings should be able to contribute that. We cannot just say, oh, it's a green building, but I don't know how much it's actually saving or how much it's actually consuming in terms of greenhouse gases. So we should be able to figure that out. So those are the 3 components of what we are calling a green building. And that definition, the quantifiable 20%, will vary from location to location, from building type to building type. So in order to facilitate that, in order to make it easy for everyone, we came up with a free software. So again, the idea is to scale up. Not everybody can afford to have a green building consultant and pay them thousands of rupees to do the simulation. So what if we provided all this information free of charge to anybody who wants to use it, so to analyze the building and compare it against that local benchmark that we were just talking about? That would be very powerful information. And secondly, what if that software also allowed you to come up with different options, with different scenarios of improvement, and see the relative impact of that, rather than doing a lot of detailed energy simulations, which again is not really in the skill set of most people who are designing buildings or building buildings. What if we provided a very, very simple interface where you could look at the options and the cost benefit analysis of those options? So you could use this tool as part of your design process, as a guidance to kind of inform you which decisions to take. Should I buy a double pane glass, or should I use that same money to buy better lighting or provide external shading? Or should I use that money to maybe put in a rainwater harvesting system? What are the relative benefits and cost of these measures? That's something that requires a lot of calculations typically to figure out. But through the software, you can do it much faster and quicker manner. So that's the first part, and I'll show you a brief glimpse of that software. The second part is that achievable standard that I mentioned, the 20%. And that 20% applies to 3 different categories. So if you can show energy reduction by 20% against that benchmark, water reduction by 20% against that same benchmark, and embodied energy of the construction materials. So the energy used to manufacture those materials, if we can show a reduction in that as well, then we get both economic benefits in terms of lower energy bills, electricity bills, lower water bills, and lower environmental impact because of the embodied energy of materials as well. And the third part is the label or the certification, which we've established a certification system globally, including in India. So these are the three aspects. We've deliberately not made it very comprehensive. We realize that site issues are important, landscape issues are important, transport issues are important, indoor air quality is important, but typically those issues are not what is driving most decisions, and they in most cases are not very well understood as well and implemented as well because of that. So we said, let's tackle the highest priority items first, and then these can be built on later. So that's why we picked energy, water, and materials, because they are simpler to quantify, and most two of them have direct impact on the bottom line of the project. So the software is available for multiple building types: warehouses, hospitals, hotels, offices, retail, homes. Homes, importantly, we've kept it available to all categories of homes. You can start with a simple, small, single home to an EWS housing, low income, affordable housing, and go right up to the top to luxury housing or service apartments as well. And then similarly for hotels and other categories, we look at all different subcategories as well. Light industry, we cover warehouses and storage and light industrial applications. So I mentioned the 20-20-20, which gives you the EDGE certification. That's the minimum standard, minimum certification standard. But we recognize some buildings want to go beyond that and can go beyond that. So we've added this EDGE advanced level, which you get if you meet at least 40% energy saving as compared to that same baseline. And if you get the EDGE advanced, then you become eligible for the zero carbon certification, which is not a design certification. Unlike the first two, zero carbon is available only after 1 year of operation, at least 1 year of operation, when you can actually show that this building used this much energy and then generated or bought this much renewable energy, which matched or exceeded my energy consumption. Therefore, it was kind of a neutral on the energy use and therefore zero carbon. So that's an operational certificate, whereas the first two are more of a design certificate. So let me just show you a very quick video. So I actually wanted to show the software, but right now it's under maintenance. We do a monthly maintenance, and it's happening right now. So I'll run a very short video, and I'll talk through it. So the first thing you have to do is go to our website at edgebuildings.com. So an edgebuildings.com has a lot of information on projects that have reached the green standard in our cities, in different climate zones, different income categories. So these are local examples that you can actually see. And then you click on the Edge app button at the right top. If you have not registered, you just need to register once at no cost, and then sign in. After you sign in, you'll see the screen where you can select your building type. On the left, there are those icons. So you select which building type you want to assess. So let's go with a homes. And then in homes, you can do either landed houses or apartment buildings. So you start by putting in some basic project details, your building address, etc. Select your city. Select the sub project. So you can have a campus, and then you can have multiple buildings or towers within the campus. You select the city and your location and your income category. Once you do that, it brings in all the data for that city and that income category. So you don't need to figure out your base case yourself. The software has that built in. You enter the basic size of your apartment building, number of floors, units, how many people expected in each house, etc. There are a lot of default information. So as a starting point, you can just use that. And as you get more details on your project, you can start to fill in the details in the user entry. Then depending on whether you have air conditioning installed or not, you can select that. And even if you don't have an air conditioning installed, the software calculates how much energy would be needed to get us to a comfortable situation in our building. There is a lot more information available in the key assumptions, which is more on the base case side. What really is needed to build the base case. Typically, you would not need to adjust any of this information unless your electricity rates are different from the normal. So once that is built in, that's all that is needed to actually build our first model, first base case model. So here you see on the left is a base case model, which is telling us for this building, our energy consumption is roughly about 55 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, excluding air conditioning. And air conditioning is put in that virtual energy column, which is saying that if in the future this building owner installed an air conditioning, this is how much energy they would use. The measure on the right, the bar on the right is showing our actual building. And by selecting the measures on the left in that menu of options that you see, you can start to decrease the size of this bar, which is representing the energy use. And as soon as you meet the 20% mark, then the software tells you now you are eligible to go for an EDGE certification. There is a lot of information available in case you are confused with any term or you need more information. You can access the user guide right from within the software. You can tweak the energy measures, customize them according to your needs. Then similarly, in the water category, we look at where the water is being used. In this case, it's mostly in the shower heads and toilet flushes. So you try to come up with better shower heads, better toilet flushes, and reduce it by at least 20%. And here in this case, we've done it by 28% through just 3 measures or 4 measures. And as you can see on the top, it is giving us an estimate on the cost of this improvement and the paybacks. So right now it's just 0.02 years. So less than a month payback for these measures. The last item is the embodied energy, where you go in and you select the materials. There are multiple options, and we have listed options which use less energy to manufacture, like AAC blocks or fly ash bricks, or precast concrete panels, or using UPVC frames for windows rather than aluminum. All of these add up, and depending on your building volume, you can just select 1 or 2 measures and achieve the 20% saving. I would recommend looking at all the options and trying to do as much as possible. But if your budget doesn't allow, you can just choose the easiest one or the most affordable one and get to the 20% mark. So now we've achieved at least 20% saving on all 3. So this project is now ready to be certified. And the certification process is also, we've kept it very streamlined, because we found that was another challenge that the market was getting, is this complexity of the green building certification. They don't want to wait for months on end and spend a lot of money to get certification. They want to do it quickly. They want to do it at a reasonable cost. So we have streamlined the whole process. All the entries, all the submissions are done through the software. The auditor also checks everything through the software and then submits it for the final certification. So I would encourage you to explore the software. If you go to the software after half an hour, it should be live again, because the maintenance period finishes then. And then you would be able to explore all of it at no cost at all. And if you have any questions, I'll be there to answer those questions anytime. So back to you, Nilesh.
Super, great. And having used this, just to share this with everyone, it also almost takes you into that game mode, wherein you are toying with options and you see the bars and charts immediately go up and down, and then you are, so it's quite interesting, and it's quite interesting at the same time fun to play with the software and do it. But how has your experience been, Autif, over the past existence in India? I think this is kind of come in late into the Indian market, but over the last couple of years, how has your experience been?
So it's been a mixed experience. I think the challenges that we counted in the beginning of the call, talking about awareness issues and perception about cost of green building, we face the same issues as well. That most people think a green building would be costly. Most people think it would be a complex process. So fighting that awareness or removing those myths is the kind of the biggest hurdle. When people see those numbers live in front of them, especially the cost numbers, a lot of eyes open wide and they say, oh, it's that simple and won't cost me that much, then I can do it. So in the last 1 year or so, we've seen a lot of interest because we've been talking to a lot of clients across the country, a lot of potential clients, including affordable housing developers, including five-star hotels, MNC office complexes to industrial warehouses. And all of them are kind of surprised by the ease with which we can actually meet the standard. Ease meaning not that the standard is too lenient, but the ease in the process itself. So we've tried to do that, and I hope this will make it easier for buildings to go green, and therefore benefit both their customers, their occupants, as well as the environment.
So we have some 5 actively operated rating systems. Can we have the next poll? So we have some 5 actively operating systems available in the market today. So I would like all of us to kind of opt for the one that you have heard of, you are more aware of, or your experience in which, given a choice, you would opt for, or none. Hence, or if you so feel that green building rating systems are not required, we are anyway sustainable or doing it, you have the option of selecting none as an option. We have GEM, which has been recently introduced in the market. I think just formatting by Associam. Edge is something that we saw. GRIA has been in the market for quite some time. Of course, LEED has been the pioneer as early as 2001, 2003.
So in case if anyone is not able to view the poll, it is on the top left. You can click on it. There's a poll in progress, and you can click and you can participate. Because I see there's probably a couple of people who are facing some challenges. I'm just sharing this.
Okay. So of course, this survey will be very important and interesting for Autif, of course, but otherwise for us also in general to gauge the awareness, because there are few rating systems which are talk of the town and they are very handy on the tip of people's tongues, and there are new entrants coming in the market. So let's see what results come in from.
Okay, I think I'll end it. Another 5 seconds. 5.
Okay. In the meanwhile, yeah, while that happens, Roshni, how can the material industry, we started off and you said that yes, they are a very important stakeholder. How can the material industry be part of this particular solution? Yes, you did say about availability of materials. So how can, if you can just elaborate that for the audience?
Yeah, so I think that the material industry can definitely do a lot in terms of also research and development, collaboration, working with academia, and researching for new materials or new types of products, whether it is in efficiency, whether it is in water efficiency, and providing ready-made products to people. Like today, if you want to do rainwater harvesting, you have to check out the geological situation, provide. I remember there was some ready-made people filters and things like that. So you need like products in the market which you can just go and pick up. So okay, for this kind of location, this kind of solution is good enough, or for this kind of climatic zone, I require the walling system, and I have a choice of 5 materials. So I think they can do a lot with collaboration with academia, doing research and development. And this can be an ongoing thing for them.
And as we always see in many industries, the last mile connectivity is very important. Oh, we have the results here. So LEED is of course the winner. Autif, you have done a good job with 11% opting for Edge. But yes, of course, lead comes up with the clear winner with Griha following, and IGBC, Edge, and none being at par again. So yes, lead. As we all know, lead does take has the first mover advantage, and it hence is the clear cut winner out of it. But yeah, interesting statistics. But yes, Atif, well done job. You still. So coming back to Roshni. So as I was saying, the last mile connectivity becomes very important. So how can availability of material to the last end user? What are the challenges faced at that end? Because that is something also very critical. Having great manufactured products, but making them available to the last mile.
Yes.
So how can we address that?
I think there one has to play the role of awareness among the people in the contractors and the working people and so on. We neglect in when we talk about awareness, we just do awareness among architects and the educated class, so called. So we need to also reach out to the contractors. Just to give you an example, when we are working on this energy efficient walling materials, we found that a lot of people simply reject the recycled blocks. So there's a particular company which makes blocks from recycled debris, but the contractors have not accepted it. They made something with sandwich panel, which will provide very good efficiency, but they say that handling it and it will take a lot more time. The labor does not know how to use it. So all these are specific ground-related hurdles and barriers, which we also need to recognize. And and also I think a lot of education and awareness to these people about what we are talking about efficiency. Why do we need to do such and such a thing is also very important.
So while we have some very interesting things kept as best for the last, before that, Mehul, do we have some audience questions that we can take in at this point of time? Or
yes, there is a question from one of our attendees. So I'll just read it. Mr. Narasimha Srinivas has mentioned, this is addressed to architect Roshni, Yehuda. The insulation industry has materials, expertise, and willingness to offer energy efficient solutions. Our problem is that builders and developers, although enthusiastic at the beginning, do not seem to retain it when it comes to the stage when they should incorporate insulation on the plea that they have no budget. Major bottleneck is that the builder or the developer is not the one to face energy consumption stage. He mentions that Autif has brought out the necessity for the market to see value, and I endorse his viewpoint. But can the designer be the main prime mover to overcome this resistance and motivate the building sector to be the energy efficient as a way of life?
Wow. Roshni, all the best. Yeah.
So I think that's a very important question. And when we did this roadmap for energy conservation building code, this kind of question always came up about how to motivate the developers. And the developers are one party, the one stakeholder, the user is another stakeholder. So whose job is it and why should the developer do it, and so on and so forth. So I think that if the developer is able to take this responsibility, it a role, because it creates a sort of awareness consumers. They something, okay, this is green. Once a developer who said that I will provide my houses for interested in green one and who are ready to pay that extra for green. So that is one way to look at it. But I would also say that maybe it is also a regulatory responsibility also, that there are many materials or many which should not be there because they are not efficient. So just market. If you have a material value is 2 point something, still in the market, concrete blocks. Everybody is now using the concrete blocks. So that is another way to look at it as well. Remove the ones which are really not there and make it mandatory to use at least this much as a starting point.
So Roshni, I have one question. So can you throw some light on regulations and policies to support green buildings? As you rightly said, that is very important. So
Yes, so I think that, of course, everybody knows about the Energy Conservation Building Code, which is basically a design code for people to make their buildings energy efficient and to reach those standards. And made, of course, it was a responsibility for state governments to make it mandatory and or to make it in or to implement it. And somehow, except maybe one or two states, it has not really been a great success. But in some cases, in some municipalities, some urban local bodies, they have taken it up, providing in the beginning some kind of incentives. So, like, you know, if somebody is recycling their garbage or something like that, so give them property tax rebates or something. To begin with, I think that regulations are required because they also create awareness, and then some sort of incentive to start the market rolling is also very important. So while there are things like ECBC, they have not been very successful because there is a lax among the state governments to actually implement it, see that it is in place, and also there has to be a very detailed, you know, we need trained professionals, we need all of these things need to be put in place before we have regulations. So it's just not saying that you need to have energy efficient buildings or you need to have green buildings or something. You also need to have a whole bunch of trained people, whether it is at the level of builders or contract architects. So that whole thing needs to be worked out. It's a exercise that I think that we badly need in this country.
Okay, thank you. And this one is to Autif. Can you share your experience in handling green spaces in India against handling them in Mongolia or other global markets? In short, you
Yeah,
can
it's
say.
like two completely different worlds in some ways, because Mongolia, those of you who may not be familiar, is an extremely cold place. And the capital city of Mongolia gets down to minus 50 degrees Celsius. And they have Russian style, so they were under Soviet influence. So their housing stock or their building stock is not very efficient. So they use an extremely high amount of heating energy, and that all comes from a coal-fired heating plant that is right in the middle of the city. So it causes a massive amount of pollution in the city. Much worse than Delhi, much worse than Beijing. It's the most polluted place I've ever been in winters. So it is, in that case, it is building efficiency, not just a matter of saving money. It is a matter of public health, because hundreds of people are dying there every year because of that, and that's directly because of the inefficient buildings. So, and that is one of the key drivers that is driving both the government and to some extent the citizens there as well to act. And technically speaking as well, the solutions that we have in Mongolia are very different. There we are trying to make the building envelope as tight as possible to avoid air leakage, make it as insulated as possible, and utilize the sun to rather than protect from the sun, get the benefit of the sun wherever possible without leaking out the heat from the inside. So very different techniques, but the end goal is the same, to prevent wastage of electricity and energy in buildings.
Yeah, thank you, Autif. Yeah.
We have a question from Mr. Padmakar Nandusekar. He is asking the panelists whether green building is a substitute for tree plantation and area for land in industry with respect to EC conditions. Do you want me to repeat that again?
Roshni?
Yes, I think maybe
like
you can repeat it. I somehow did.
Okay. Whether green building is a substitute for tree plantation and area for land in industry with respect to EC conditions. I'm not from the industry. I'm not very sure what the EC condition means.
The environmental approval condition, yeah.
I don't think that green building is a substitute for any sort of thing. So green building is part of the EC conditions and also is tree plantation. They both, you cannot have one for the other. So you can certainly, plant a lot of trees to offset some kind of maybe energy consumption that you have incurred in some building. Like I know For example, in Orange County in Pune, they did a building which was very good in terms of energy efficiency. Plus, they had renewable energy, working the lifts and so on. And then what they did was they did a lot of plantation outside of the city. So they said that we are trying to make the building absolutely green emissions. So that could be a thought, but I don't think one can be replaced for the other, if I understood the question correctly.
And can I also?
I think there will be a lot of questions. Yes, Autif. Yes, Autif, please.
Yeah. So I completely agree with Roshni, and this is an important point because green buildings or energy efficiency or resource efficiency cannot be achieved by just one simple measure or one initiative. It is a comprehensive approach. You have to think of all the things. It's like being healthy. You cannot be healthy just by eating good food and not doing any physical activity. So you have to do all of it to be healthy. And similarly, for a green building, you need to do all these things. You need to have energy efficiency, water efficiency, renewable energy, and landscape and green plantation as well.
So I think questions will keep coming. We have constraint of time at our disposal. So I'm really thankful to everybody for those having contributed and asked questions. And we can of course take them offline. And you have the contacts of our panelists, and we can interact with them as we go ahead. Can we have the last poll?
So one. I think it's a very interesting question. It just came up. I think this should be taken up. So have any studies been made about energy efficiency of buildings in different locales, like urban versus rural, city versus small town and such? This is in respect to the known fact that the microclimate is warmer in a city than in a small town.
Autif, you would like to take it?
Yeah, absolutely. The question is correct that there is a definite change in microclimate. In denser cities where you have more built up spaces, less trees, less green area, less ground coverage, the temperatures go up, and that's the urban heat island effect. And typically we've seen temperatures range between 2 to 3 degrees Celsius higher in those cities as compared to the outskirts of the same city. So I live near Powai, and I believe when I look at the temperatures, Powai is blessed to be close to the Sanjay Gandhi forest, and because of that, the temperature has a slightly lower than if you go further south in Mumbai. So it has an impact because especially if you have air conditioning in a building, because now you're trying to cool it down from a higher temperature. So definitely it does impact. And providing greenery on the site and possibly even green roofs can reduce some of that impact.
Yeah, I think would just like to add to that you may be interested to know that the Bureau of Energy Efficiency has done on the EPI, Energy Performance Index of buildings in different parts of India, especially from climate perspective. And all of this is available on the website of BE. These reports are available, so maybe you can download and find out. So, but there is a general range, like residential buildings between 48 to 70 EPI is generally what is seen in, say, composite zones or something like that. So there are very interesting studies, and in general, the energy performance index across India is very, very low, except in the metro cities, as you know, where we consume a lot more energy. That trend has been somewhat captured. So maybe you'd be interested to see in the BE website.
To conclude, just I would like to mention one thing. I'm very happy and proud to share one thing, like first building in all over India to get IGBC Platinum rating, office building. That is done by us at Chandrapur Chanda long back in 2014. Corporate office of ACC, CCR building. So happy to be part of this mission. Yeah.
Can we have the last poll?
Yes.
We are actually going to wrap up.
The last, I think, is...
Thank you, Conrad, sir, for your comments.
So we put the last one as a survey. What I would request everyone is, when the session ends, please take this survey because it gives a lot of inputs to us, in terms of how this can benefit. especially Mr. Autif and architect Roshni, who can take this back to their organizations and give them a feedback of, what you guys as designers, as architects, as interior designers, as trades, men who actually are working day in and day out on buildings and projects, can actually give a lot of input from your experiences. So I would really encourage you all to take this with that.
And there are some very interesting things. Yeah. No, once that comes in, because there are the answers to that poll has a lot of takeaways for us to analyze, debrief us a bit. So as we have that poll. I think we are just right on time. We have not delayed.
So I think
substantially.
So I think let's wrap
is that
it up.
Acha,
Any last thoughts?
There's a problem? No. So that poll is not coming in?
No, we put it in the survey. The survey comes at the end of the... that's a survey. So you put it as a survey. The survey comes at the end of the session.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. Great. Okay. So thank you. It was a pleasure to have to moderate this session and have a discussion with Roshni and Autif. Both of you are experts and masters of your field. You have been there, done it, everything. And I'm sure each one of us who has been attending here live, but going forward in this digital age, we have this content live for generations together to be accessed. And I'm sure this will add a lot of value to people who see this in future. And it's a really honor to be thankful to entire IIID committee members who have entrusted this job to me, especially Leena and Mehul. Thanks for your confidence and time. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mehul.
Thank you very much, Architect Nilesh Gandhi, Architect Roshni Yehuda, Architect Autif Syed. Thank you so much for your time, for being with us on this platform, sharing your knowledge, your resources. Thank you so much. I'm sure the attendees have benefited, just as it has been an interesting thing, even from a non-design perspective. It was very interesting to learn a few things from you guys. So thank you. On behalf of Institute of Indian Interior Designers, IIID Mumbai Regional Chapter, I once again thank all our attendees. Please complete the post. And as already shared by our chairperson, we are an institute which encourage these kind of knowledge sharing sessions. So please engage with us more. We are available on Facebook and Insta. Thank you so much. I shall end it. Once I end it, you will be able to see the service. So please complete that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.